And we also felt like, especially nowadays, there's no clearinghouse for information about conferences, funding opportunities, new modeling approaches, and so there needs to be some sort of place for that.
Yeah, and this is something I've been experiencing in my boot camps for several years. You know, people come, they get all fired up, and they go back and they've known to talk to as easily. Maybe they'll send messages to some of my TAs, but often it's a thin pipe, and finding partners locally is difficult. Finding partners with their interest in staying abreast of new materials come out, as funding announcements come out, as lectures are found, as events are announced, some way of keeping in touch. And the need is particularly acute now that some of the support for circulating materials relevant to system science seems to have a much lower level of activity, particularly the sort of system science and health mailing list that used to be maintained at the NIH.
Doesn't operate anymore.
Doesn't seem.
That was like a lifeblood for people in this area.
Yeah. So we thought we can do better. I had the student create the first version of the site, and then we've taken it at a whole new level here. So
one just
yeah.
piece of information. So we have been emphasizing how to get the site up and running in a very user-friendly way. Content has been somewhat been focused to make sure the content uploaded works. So when you look, think of this as content free effectively at this point. We will be adding content before we release it to the public, but some of the content is not totally germane. But we did that to test the site to make sure there were no bugs.
This is a testing site right now. It's a development site, as we say. And what's going to happen sometime in the next month or two probably is it'll be rolled out to a site that selected groups might be prompted to log into, with the understanding that it's for feedback and refinement. So broadly speaking, this is a site that's oriented towards allowing a community to grow, to share resources, to be aware of new opportunities, to find partners, to find links, specifically in system science and health. I was approached when I was associated with my boot camp. I was approached about making this broader than health, and I said absolutely not. This is a health modeling community, and as a result, there's some features that it can know about ahead of time in terms of some of the divisions of health, the sort of domain structure that can be leveraged. But more to the point, it can be a place where the conversations that you find are much more likely to be of interest to you. There's sites out there where they're talking about modeling, dynamic modeling in general, but often those from a health background found that of limited interest, because a lot of it might be about industrial modeling of warehouses or oil distribution, and how much you're going to get out of that day to day. So let's just go through in a systematic way. The site does require login to take best advantages of its features. The reason for that is this is a sharing site. This is a site which you folks help create. Just like social media, you post things on your wall and what have you. You're going to be contributing things here, and we can't have people contributing malware. And we live in an ugly world. All you have to do is to look at the news to know about that. And one of the realities is that a site like this, unprotected, each night probably a half dozen hackers will try to break into. So-called script kiddies. They'll run scripts against it and trying to break in to post malware to infect your computers, and bad things will happen. And so in order to prevent that, we do require login to post. We require login to see certain types of materials. And besides, some of you might not feel comfortable having your materials go to the general public, but you're comfortable with those who are validated users. So this is a site whose content and structure are shaped by you as a community, okay? They will be shaped by you. At the same time, it knows about features of interest. So, for example, through this top menu, we can go browse models within the site. And you'll notice that for models, it has certain labels of things like the topic in which the model is contributing, the software used to create the model, and these tags which reflect sort of the germane keywords, as it were, that help understand these models. So there's going to be libraries of models. There's also lectures which fundamentally are used to bundle together videos together with slides. This is a video here. Slides, relevant documentation, and background materials, and models that might be covered in this lecture. So the idea is we have this kind of bundles of content. So if I give a lecture and I show a model, I can distribute that model with the lecture video together with the slides, which allows you a more fulsome experience. You can follow people on here. So I follow Elizabeth and Tina, it looks like. And
part of the idea, something that we feel very strongly about because this whole program was funded by NIH, is that our hope is that the modeling community, this is not just an outlet for us. The modeling community will use this as an opportunity, for example, to post if there are lecture slides or if there are models that accompany a publication. It'll be a forum for anyone who's in this area to contribute content.
Very good. And yes, we do want it to be inclusive. Well, you'll find my components and my students very highly reflected here. A lot of that's because it just came out of my lab originally, and so we've contributed. And this, for me, was kind of a speck in the cosmic eye. 2 years ago, I thought, okay, I want to create a site kind of like this, and so we've been seeding materials to test it out. A key use of this is to find help, find partners. So you're interested in working in a certain area. Think about it as the site grows to thousands of people on it. You want to find someone who's got a background that can speak to a particular project or for a particular job of work without welcoming them necessarily as a team member. So a project partner would be someone where you're very interested in having them join up on a longer term basis. You want to describe the project, the keywords, etc. What should they know about the project? But then you want to further describe the roles that you're seeking, and what skills are required, whether there's pay, etc. And you want to allow people to know about by posting to the site, okay, I'm looking for someone with this background. By contrast, looking for specific work is more defined. It might be, I need someone to help me import data from PIAC or from UCINet into a NetLogo model for network structure. Or, I want to convert this model from NetLogo to AnyLogic. It's a defined sort of job, and therefore it really focuses more on the particular skills and less on the details of the project and so on. You're not necessarily seeking someone to join long-term the project, just I want to get something done. And we find that that's not that unusual at all in this area, because there's maybe some code that needs to be written for something, and you're a little bit comfortable with NetLogo code, but you really want someone who understands a lot more details.
And we're also trying to avoid a situation where sometimes it's a little scary to get someone out of the blue with no recommendations and no connectivity.
Yep.
And so part of this is within the community, people can also have references that are also community group members, and there's a bit more of a sense of accountability.
Yeah. So another thing that can be done is to advertise funding opportunities. And this might not be the set of things that everyone here would do as much, but this is going to be an NIH-sponsored, there's going to be NIH-sponsored content along there. And they are following this with interest, and our hope is that we can get a pretty close connection, which will allow materials to be posted here germane to system science and health pretty quickly. But some of you might hear about opportunities through the Gates Foundation that seem germane, or postdocs, or what have you, and you could let people know about these things. You'll notice for each of these, there's not only descriptions, but things like websites and deadlines, etc., that provide a little bit of additional information. One of the more exciting, well, I think I'll come back to communities in a second, because there's substantive things there. A forum allows people to ask questions, to make comments, and there can be long discussion chains associated with this. So, for example, some replies to earlier questions, etc. So that forum is a chance to sort of put things out there as far as questions and discussion. Events can be used to announce lectures. They could be online. They could be in geography. We do have the ability to sort of place them on a map so that, if you're interested in lectures in the Boston area and New England in general, you could be aware of where they are and when they are, etc. But once again, with events, a lot of the information gathered is information for that is quite specific to that sort of thing. So start and end date, description and so on. The venue, the location, region, people and the organizers, the websites. There's further articulation here of sort of whether registration is needed, whether logged out users can do that to get notifications. I think there may even be some support for a waiting list, etc. So for the organizer of an event, it actually does provide some additional features. We had talked about lectures before here. Oh my gosh. Okay, here we go. Links are links to materials online, resources that may be of interest to people. And videos have very specifically videos of topics. This one you didn't get a chance to see, but you should.
We're going to ask
Yeah.
before we roll it out to you guys is, can you also fill in the dashboard?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm much more work.
Sure.
I hate Facebook-like layouts, so I insisted that there be a dashboard where what will be in it are essentially the tags, so you can search within categories within tags. But searchability, we don't want content to be just swimming in a sea, so for every subset of categories, lectures, models, funding opportunities, you can also just search by tag. So if you're interested in particular NIH
Yep.
funding opportunities or ABM models only, you can have that option.
There's a searching functionality here, but by clicking on one of these tags, you could go for relevant content here. And that's one view of the site. When you land, the other view is sort of more recent activity, what's been posted recently, who's posted it, notification of events, sort of recency. One really organizes it structurally by topic. One sort of more prioritizes recency and so on. Okay, so that being said, what we've been looking at is really at the level of the broader site. A very powerful feature of this that we wanted to support was the ability for all sorts of people who are on this site to create communities of sub-interest to themselves, where they then can share materials within that sub-community which aren't visible across the entire site. So we wanted people who might have an interest, for example, in infant maternal health or community support or epidemic modeling, to be able to have their little area where they could share materials readily. Perhaps certain types of de-identified data, which are not publicly available aggregate data, which are not encumbered by ethics concerns or share papers they found, etc., knowing that not everyone is going to find them.
And also
yeah.
because the grant was specifically to develop a curriculum that anyone could use to teach this stuff. One key function of the site is that there's a closed community for people who are teaching system science, where they can confer among other people teaching system science about models or struggles that they have, and it's not visible to anyone who's not part of that community.
Right. So when you create a community, so this is this closed community to which Elizabeth referred, and when you go create a community on this site, you can designate features of community, and you note that at that time you can indicate, okay, is it closed or open? Is this something that anyone can join, can opt into, who's a registered member of this site? Or is this something where that the people that can join it are just those who get invited? So I only want a small group to be able to invite that. So maybe it's a book club, talk about system science and health, and a journal club, and you're sharing articles there for this small group. And because of copyright and other concerns, you don't want everyone there. And you'll notice that within the community, you can enable a lot of these features that we saw at the higher level. So we can, is there, for example, activity shown within that community? I think that's what that means. Is there a discussion forum? Are there file uploads and community links that are provided, and sort of questions related to it? Are there lectures specific to that community? And are discussions open for anyone to start, or is it limited to those who are administrators to initiate a discussion, for example? So in short, communities provide users this way of creating either more open gathering points for people who have common interests to share, or share topical materials without seeing things from all different areas of the health space, or those who might be interested in methodological issues. Alternatively, it provides this ability to create well-defined, gated subsets of materials and people that can be shared with trust and confidence that they won't be provided, it won't leak out into the broader site or the web.
So we're going to finalize the site structure and make sure everything's working and seed it with some initial content, and then we are going to do a soft launch of it, and we're hoping that you guys, along with the previous course, will be willing to start to try to use it, and in exchange we would ask for feedback. Our goal is to let our students start playing with it before we open the floodgates to everyone else in the universe. So, and also we would invite you, if you see a need that's not being served. The site structure now really comes out of, one thing we learned when we started teaching for the R25 grant was that what happens here is it's an important contribution, but what really matters is what happens after, in terms of you guys getting your case funded and getting your projects off the ground. And so all of these features came out of needs people had afterwards that were very frustrating to them. So if you think there's something here that we haven't included, we would be interested to hear that too. But we would really welcome your feedback as we start to make it a useful thing. It's really supposed to be there to be useful to you guys as teachers and as new system science.
So if you could give this some really serious thought, that would be incredibly valuable. Like when you imagine yourself going back, or when you do go back, what's missing here? Like what could we provide that would help further? What sort of extra resources might be useful?
Right. Because what doesn't work is that we go back to all our own demands, and you guys have questions, because we can't field all the questions. They need to be put somewhere centralized. And so I think that, but I think, if there are things that we haven't accounted for, we'd be interested to hear them. I think, so in the next month or so, you'll get an email from us probably with an invitation to register. Don't feel obliged, but if you so do so, and we would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
I think in the interest of time,
Yeah.
we should probably, does anyone have any questions about the web?
Or suggestions right now?
Yeah.
One, I guess, ask, which is, I've been thinking throughout, as you've been talking about how you report the results of these models. And so I was wondering if you might be able to just post one or two papers that
Yep.
kind of is exemplary of each of the methods of how you report it in a paper.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. There's actually some reporting guidelines that have been set out systematically, and there are several task forces, including runs by ISPOR, the International Society for Pharmacoeconomic Research, MDM, and a very thoughtful paper by John Sturman and John Sturman and Hajir Rahmandad, which are germane to this, and they get into best practices, but reporting is one of the key best practices for reproducibility, et cetera. And it's also something, of course, we talked about some in the context of the NIH working group. So.
And we should add that, one of the things, not in the soft launch, but when in the final delivery of the grant is going to be this basically zipped up folder of curriculum materials that have been honed and developed and expanded by over the years in terms of the slides that you saw here, the example models, a teacher's handbook, and more example models. Kurt is actually going to be a postdoc for the grants for the next 2 years as a way of developing and refining materials. So for you as teachers too, part of the idea is that might be a good thing to include in the teaching packet as well, so people can just hand that out.
Yeah. Other questions? Any feedback related to the site? Yeah.
I just have a thought. This clearly is sort of a site that's created by its users and in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And if the goal, part of the goal is to make it an inclusive community and bring new people in.
Yeah.
I don't see space for content up there, which I think is okay, but it might be a nice idea to seed it with some of the sort of, beginner systems, science stuff, best practices, even a glossary of terms, so that
Great.
'cause I foresee people coming, like me, going to it and seeing some of the,
Yeah.
some of the titles for what's posted and whatnot, being like, oh god,
Yeah, what we can do is on the initial landing page,
yeah,
we can be like new to system science.
Sure.
Go here.
Hop over here.
That's
Yeah,
great.
could be.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great.
that's a great idea.
Could be a community. Yeah. Good. I love that. So that's great. Other comments, questions? Okay. I will say, just in terms of support, if you go there, if we would ask you to go, if you go early, ask you to be a little bit patient while we incorporate concerns. I will ask basically all my students, which is a group of around 15, to sort of be regularly on there to help answer questions, support, provide some materials, etc. But what's most critical is that it develop a critical mass to, keep coming, because what you don't want is the ghost town effect. It's a community site, but there's no community there, right? So if you could give it just a little bit of time while we get things in order, while materials are posted, while the students get their sea legs in terms of answering questions, I think that would be great. But we're really hoping to jumpstart this. We will be opening the floodgates not too long from now, but it's very, very important that we get feedback on it. We learn where the problems are, the rough edges, before we open those floodgates, because we may only have one shot at getting people there, and once they've gone there, been there, done that.
It doesn't work.
If
or
it doesn't,
they perceive it as being our ego. It really we want to really make sure that it's something that is useful to the community.
Yeah.
So, all right. So it's 11 o'clock now. I propose that we take a 20-minute break. Please make sure to send Jeff your slides at his email address, and we will get those ready to go. If you want to touch base with